6 months after our divorce, I saw her pregnant and realized she never had an abortion. The truth hit me like a bullet. I wasn't expecting to see her again. 6 months had passed since we signed the papers, since I handed over the last of our joint belongings and walked out of the apartment we once shared. 6 months of pretending I had moved on. Then I saw her. It was on a cold, rainy evening. I ducked into the corner cafe, trying to avoid the freezing wind, my scarf pulled tight over my face. And there she was, leaning against the window, her hand pressed against her stomach in a way that made my heart stutter. Pregnant. A strange, cold wave of disbelief washed over me. My mind tried to rationalize. Maybe it was someone else's child. Maybe I was seeing things. Maybe this was a cruel trick of light and shadow. But the way her coat stretched slightly over the curve of her belly, it wasn't a mistake. My ex-wife was pregnant. And suddenly, all the lies she told me, the false claims of abortion, the secretive phone calls, the cold distance in the last weeks before the divorce, they snapped into focus. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But I didn't. I watched. I observed. And in that moment, I realized something far more dangerous than anger. I realized that I had been played, that my heartbreak had been manipulated. And now I had to decide how to reclaim control. For months after our separation, she had spun a story. She said she had terminated the pregnancy early. She said it was the only way we could part cleanly. I had believed her. I had wanted to believe her. I had swallowed my rage and let it fester quietly, thinking time would numb the pain. But now, standing there across the street, watching her laugh at something her friend whispered, I knew the truth. I had been deceived. She had never had an abortion. She had carried the child all along, knowing, calculating, letting me suffer under the weight of lies. And the worst part was the audacity of her plan. She knew I loved her once. She knew I had invested everything in a life we were supposed to share. And yet, she had weaponized my own emotions, turning them into a cage for her manipulations. I remembered the night she cried, the night she said, "It's over, I can't do this anymore." She never meant it, not truly. Every word, every tear, every silent accusation I endured, it had been a tool, a way to make me feel powerless. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was strategic, calculated. I felt the first real pulse of anger, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that simmers in quiet intelligence, waiting for the right moment to strike. And I knew I had the moment now. I started to piece together her timeline in my mind. Every suspicious phone call, every secretive smile, every night she went out to think while leaving me alone, I remembered them all. I pulled the old emails, the bank statements, the photos I had saved. Her social media was a maze of half-truths and coded messages. Nothing incriminating, at least not yet. But the patterns were there. Locations, times, people. I tracked them quietly, as one would follow an animal in the wild, patient, detached, methodical. I even revisited the doctor's office she had claimed to go to. Officially, no record existed of an abortion. Unofficially, there were whispers among the staff. I didn't confront them directly, I simply collected information, notes, observations, patterns. Every piece of evidence was a thread, and I intended to weave them into a tapestry she would never escape. I stayed calm on the surface. When friends asked about her, I smiled, I nodded. No sign of the storm inside. They would never guess how carefully I was constructing the net. Then came the breaking point. A mutual friend innocently mentioned her visit to a clinic for a routine checkup 6 months ago. Routine? 6 months ago? The pieces clicked. I had been lied to. The child she carried was real, alive, growing, and I had been nothing but a pawn in her carefully crafted narrative. The simmering rage coalesced into something sharper, more focused. I wasn't going to lose this battle. Not this time. Not ever. The evidence fell into my lap almost effortlessly. Her friend, the one she laughed with in the cafe, accidentally let slip a detail. A doctor's name, a date, a routine ultrasound. I cross-referenced everything. Every location, every timestamp, every subtle lie she had whispered in the night. I had proof now. I didn't confront her in public. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply held the folder in my hand, cold and precise, waiting for the right moment. When she finally came to speak to me, her tone careful, defensive, I handed her the documents. No words, just the folder. Her eyes widened, then darted around, trying to gauge if this was a setup. "You knew?" she whispered finally. I nodded, emotionless. I knew. Her lips quivered. For the first time in months, I saw fear. Not anger, not defiance, fear. I let her stew in that fear. Every misstep she had made, every lie she had told, every calculated tear she had shed, it was all now laid bare before her. "You wanted me broken," I said softly, almost a whisper, but I never was. You underestimated how carefully I watched, how quietly I planned. She tried to argue, to appeal to the past we shared, but I didn't listen. I didn't need to. My vindication wasn't in her confession. It was in her shock, in the realization that she no longer controlled the narrative. I walked away, leaving the folder on the table, her trembling hands hovering over it. She would read it. She would know, and by the time she processed it, her carefully constructed world would crumble. I didn't gloat. I didn't shout. I simply walked away, each step a quiet reclaiming of my power, each heartbeat a testament to the control I had regained. 6 months of torment, of heartbreak, of carefully hidden manipulations, it was over. I walked through the streets, rain still falling lightly, my mind clear, my heart detached. She would survive, of course. Life has a way of continuing even after the most devastating truths are revealed. But she would never be the same, and neither would I. I had learned something far more valuable than revenge. I had learned that control, patience, and intellect were far more powerful than anger or desperation. I had reclaimed my life without raising a hand, without sinking to the depths of her deceit. I glanced back once, catching the flicker of realization in her eyes, and smiled faintly. Not out of pleasure, not out of malice, but because the truth, finally, had been exposed. I walked on, alone, yes, but stronger, clearer, free. The bullet had struck, not through violence, but through truth. And in that truth, I found my final vindication.